Welcome friends to another r/MaliciousCompliance video. Today we've got a crazy story of getting a teacher to quit. But first, a story from I Want a Secret Garden. You can't read on duty. Worked as a front office staffer, basically a secretary, back in the tens recession. I was wildly overqualified at the time, but it was a hard job market and I needed to do things like eat and live somewhere. I worked on a staff of 4 other office workers with wildly different work-pace styles. One did absolutely nothing except talk to his family on the phone 4 to 5 times a day. One watched ESPN with an earbud in. One managed and cultivated his social media presence for his 10-year-old daughter. Yuck. And one was never there because she was always getting something from the supply closet or picking up lunch. So basically I was youngish and naive and wanted to do an excellent job. So I picked up all the slack and did all of the work, and quickly too. I would always answer the phone on the first ring, reorganize the way we sent out calendar meetings, assembled read-aheads and skimmed them so I could give bulleted summaries, and just generally made myself indispensable. Given that I worked hard, I was well known as the only competent one. I thought, like some sort of fool, no one would care if I had a book to read under my desk between taking calls, scheduling appointments, or just being a general customer service desk. If no one was talking to me, my job was basically in a holding pattern. Everyone else was messing around. I watched the man next to me build a new Acura on the website about 10 times a day. I was wrong. The first time I opened my book, I got snide comments. The second time, one of the guys hustled over to moan at me that I could never, ever read on the job, that it made me look lazy. Side-eye sports statistics fantasy league card in full view. I tried to explain that when no one was in the office but us, I thought I could just read quietly, and then if anyone called or came in, I would immediately stop and help them. We didn't have cameras in our office or anything watching us, but that didn't matter. I was chastised. You should always look busy, even if no one's here to see it. So I did. I went online, found about 24 free PDF books, mostly classics, and emailed them to myself. I sat there and read through books all day on Adobe Reader and was commended for my intense focus and dedication, because no one ever saw me clicking around a website. Well, you did tell me to always look busy. In the end, I basically stopped doing a huge chunk of my job because I was now absorbed in my book. I wouldn't answer the phone right away, wouldn't see emails come in, basically got beat down into a much less stellar service role, at least when helping them. Always on the money when the boss came round though. Would you guys agree that for any job that does have dead air, like working customer service, that when that dead air free time does come around, that if they want to read, they should be more than allowed to? What about watching videos, browsing around on Reddit on their phone? Is there any difference between any of that? Should they always keep their attention on the job anyways? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Our next story is from Your Time. Charged me an extra month and don't want to return my deposit? But why lie when I have the receipts? The contract of the apartment I've been living in for the past year recently ended. I had, however, forgotten of the 60 days written move-out notice until I was reminded by management 10 days before I turned in my notice. Though it's specified in the contract and it is my responsibility as a tenant to maintain them, I was still livid by the fact that they didn't have the courtesy to remind me all the 3 times they contacted me about renewing my contract and me verbally declining. All 3 times, they said they're taking a note of it, and me being a fool that I'm not believing them. Since I didn't provide the 60 days move-out notice in writing, I was forced to pay an extra month of rent that, regardless of my moaning and crying, was not waived. Throughout my panic, they kept reminding me that it was in the contract and they couldn't do anything. Since I had to pay an extra month, I decided I was going to do everything in my power to get my deposit back. Cueing the malicious compliance, I went through the entire contract. The contract specified that I was allowed to be present during the inspection as long as I provided a written notice in advance, no date specified, and that I had the right to any information extracted from the inspection. The contract also specified that the apartment has to be left in the same condition it was received and that I was responsible for any cleaning fees from services they'd have to use. Before I actually start the juicy part of the story, I have to mention that I took detailed pictures and videos of the apartment when I moved in. Unfortunately, mine was incredibly dirty. even food on the carpets. I requested it to be cleaned, but they never did anything, so I took care of it since I'm terrified of confrontation. But I still saved and recorded anything that was not okay, regardless of how mild it was. The day I read the contract, I emailed them requesting to be present during the inspection, and that I wanted a copy of everything obtained from that inspection to compare with my notes. They didn't respond that day, so I took it upon myself to email them every day for the next 4 days until they got back to me with the following reply. Per the rental agreement section so-and-so, move-out inspection, you may be present at move-out inspection if you notify us in advance in writing of your request. OP, you turned in your keys into the Dropbox on 5/30/22 and never requested a walkthrough. The walkthrough inspection was already completed this morning. So I obviously forwarded all of my previous emails asking if those were not considered in writing. They then offered to redo the inspection with me present, but I was out of town. So I requested all the data they obtained from it instead, to which they agreed. To this day, I have not received anything from the inspection, but I did find out that they didn't actually do it until 3 days after they stated they did on that email via the bill they sent me charging me cleaning fees and no deposit back. I was like, okay, since you're not going to send me what I asked for, I'm going to send you what I have. I highlighted the part where they lied to me about the inspection date, attached pictures of how I received the apartment compared to how I left it, very clean, and I made sure to include their timestamps. Advised that per the contract, there is no reason for them to charge me cleaning fees since it was in better condition than received. I also demanded my deposit back and sent them receipts of all products I used to clean the apartment, including a new vacuum, so they could refund me at their earliest convenience or I'd contact corporate directly. I also advised that I'd send them all the communications we'd ever had, the lies they've told me, and the rest of the images and videos I have of the apartment. I honestly have no idea if I would have gotten anywhere contacting corporate, but it doesn't matter, because within 3 days I got my deposit back and got refunded for everything I spent on cleaning supplies. I did leave a review on every site I could find, but the Google one got removed for some reason. This just goes to show if you lease or rent, cover your butt. Document whatever you can when you move in. Honestly, it would be pretty smart to upload any of those pictures and forward them in an email to the people you're renting from just to really make sure that this was taken then and, that record actually exists. Do what you gotta do to get that deposit back. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our next story is from Lollipop Madness 3. That's not my name. Background: so I have a semi-common Hispanic first name, but living in the Midwest United States, people don't always pronounce it correctly. Generally speaking, I think of myself as fairly flexible with how others pronounce it. If it's our first time meeting, I'll say how it's pronounced, and as long as they get somewhat close to the pronunciation after a couple of meetings, I let it slide and acknowledge their efforts. If we've met multiple times and they're still clearly making no efforts to pronounce my name correctly, that's when I start taking offense. This wasn't always the case though. Before, I used to just acknowledge whatever people would call me. But after dealing with some identity issues in my teen years, like many of us do, and going to counseling, I learned to fully embrace my identity, including the correct pronunciation of my name, and was taught to stick up for myself as well. This story takes place when I was still making that transition. The story: in my teen years while attending high school, during freshman and sophomore year, I had a teacher that was a stickler for the rules. One of those that had been teaching 40 plus years, had her system down, and wasn't going to let anyone change her way of doing things. On the very first day of class, she handed out her rules and explained them to us. One of these rules included the attendance policy. Every day, right after the bell rang for class to begin, she would go through attendance, read off our name, and when we heard our name, we were to say, "Present," not here, not yes, or anything else. We had to say present. Not sure why she was a stickler for that, but whatever. I had this teacher for 2 years, and for almost 2 years, she would pronounce my name incorrectly. What was more confusing is she would pronounce it incorrectly in different ways each time. During attendance, she would get to my name and pronounce it incorrectly. I would then say present, and my name's pronounced so-and-so. She would then just go on to the next name, making no acknowledgement to what I said. This went on for almost 2 school years. I would also like to add that our school was on the smaller side, with classes averaging around 80 to 90 students per grade, and most teachers only focused on 1 to 2 grades. So the average teacher would probably have to work with 100 to 150 students, and by my sophomore year, every other teacher had started pronouncing my name correctly or had already pronounced my name correctly from the very beginning. It was during this time that I started developing the aforementioned identity issues and started going to counseling. The counselor pushed me to embrace who I was more and to stick up for myself as well, so that's exactly what I did. Cue malicious compliance. Close to the end of my second year with this teacher, I had had enough, and it also built up enough self-confidence to do something about it. The next day, she went through attendance and just completely butchered my name, so I didn't say anything. The teacher looks around the classroom and sees me at my desk, mispronounces my name again. I say no response. The teacher, louder this time, says, "Have you forgotten the rules of my classroom? You are to respond present when I call your name." I nervously, still wasn't all that great at sticking up for myself yet, say, "Your rules say that we're supposed to say present after our name has been called. My name's not been called." Teacher says, "Don't get smart with me, mispronunciation of my name." I say, "That's not my name, it's..." She cuts me off and says, "That's it, I'm not putting up with this, go to the office." Almost in tears, I head to the office, unsure of what I'd done or in what kind of trouble I would be in. But here's the kicker. In between my freshman and sophomore year, we got a new vice principal. This new VP was Hispanic as well and was fully aware of the counseling I was taking. I later found out as well that she was very active in the community and was one of the city leaders in pushing for Hispanic rights and advancements. So I walk into the office and she's the first one to greet me. I tell her what had happened and see her face slowly turn red with anger. She then attempts to regain her control and tells me to go to her office and work on homework until my next class period. That she'll talk to the teacher and to not worry about her. The next day, I walk into that class again, unsure of what to expect. The teacher simply begins her class without calling attendance and makes no acknowledgement of me. This continues for a week until we're informed that the teacher and the school board have agreed that she'll be taking an early retirement before the end of the school year, and that we'll finish off the class with a substitute teacher for the remainder of the year. There was a little over a month left in the year, so it ended up just being movies before a very watered-down final exam on the last week. Of course, the rumors through the school were that she was forced out and didn't receive her full retirement, but I can't confirm if any of those are true. I never saw her again and went through the rest of my high school career slowly growing in my confidence. It's just nice to see principals or vice principals that actually care about the students properly. Would you guys agree with me that after 3 or 4 goes of it, that if you can't pronounce a name properly at that point, it's just blatantly not caring enough to learn, or maybe even try? I mean, if you really can't, at least apologize every once in a while. And our final story of the day is from Mallory454, Bean Counters versus Operations. 1. I'm in the Air Force stationed at a civilian company that has a contract to modify and upgrade Air Force aircraft. Upper company management, bean counters, almost never leave their cushy corporate headquarters and have very little ideas of what happens on the operations side of the company. One of our senior enlisted personnel retires, gets a job with the company. He doesn't even change desks. One day he's there in uniform, the next in gray slacks and blue blazer, unofficial company uniform. The thing is, over time he's been stationed here, he's become the unofficial arbitrator between the company and the Air Force. When a squadron gets an airplane back after the company's worked on it, there were almost always issues. Think warranty work. The squadron, if they had issues, would call the chief, who would then review the contract and make a decision as a course of action. His word was law, and everyone trusted him to make and explain the right decision. When he was moved over to the company side, he kept doing this. He might have been on the company payroll, but he was still the chief. Keep in mind, the bean counters had no idea he was doing this. It was strictly an operational issue. So about a month into his new job, the company has a major in-flight safety issue. By the grace of God, no one died, but lots of people sure came to Jesus in a hurry. Upper management noticed this one, you can bet. A week later, we have a third-party company, the White Hats, going over operations with a fine-tooth comb. They too know almost nothing about company operations, but they have the power to fire anyone in operations on the spot. Next thing you know, the chief is cleaning out his desk. We haven't got a replacement for him yet, and anyway, his arbitration work was never in his official job description. His replacement won't have a clue about it. Our office, Air Force personnel assigned, is all in the same phone system. So when the calls start coming in, I need to speak to the chief, I'm fielding them with, I'm sorry sir, the chief isn't here anymore. The next question being, of course, well, who do I speak to about our issues with the aircraft we just got back from the company? All I could do was forward their calls to Bean Counter headquarters. I felt so sorry for the Air Force guys, but having dealt with the bean counters for a couple of years at that point, I did get some satisfaction in knowing exactly how that conversation was going to go. Up until the incident, I'm not completely sure upper management actually knew we did work on airplanes. In the end, 2 or 3 weeks later, the chief is back at his desk. He never did say if he got a pay raise out of it. Considering how vital the chief was, I sure hope they got a pay raise, they deserved it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another malicious compliance story that was more insane than anything you've heard in this video, click on that left video. Or if you missed my latest video, click on the right. But with that said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.